When my dad chose his new wife and her brilliant plan to save the world at my expense, I realized that to him, I was just a mistake from his past. He went all in on Carol and her eco-bakery, leaving me with debts and shattered dreams. But here's the irony. This planet-saving woman had her own sly agenda. It was a sunny afternoon. 16-year-old Lisa Watson, daughter of Mayor George Watson, decided to head downtown to pick up supplies for a school project. She walked into Phillips Market, a long-standing family-owned store that had been part of the town's landscape for years. Lisa was set on having a productive day, planning to finish her project and then hang out with her friends. The moment she entered the store, though, she felt something was off. Conversations among customers hushed, and Mr. Phillips, an elderly man with a stern expression behind the counter, fixed her with a piercing stare. Accustomed to friendliness, Lisa tried to ignore the awkward atmosphere. She browsed the stationery aisle, looking for brushes, but couldn't find any. When she noticed Mr. Phillips continuing to watch her as if suspicious of her intentions, she mustered the courage to approach the counter. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "Could you help me find paintbrushes?" Mr. Phillips lifted his chin, scanned her from head to toe, and snapped, "We don't serve your kind here." Lisa blinked, stunned. Muted gasps filled the store as customers exchanged glances. Struggling to process what she'd just heard, Lisa wondered if she'd misunderstood. "Excuse me? I'm not sure I understand," she said, her voice steady but tinged with unease. "You understood me just fine," he replied, his tone sharp and disdainful. "Now get out." A suffocating silence descended on the store. Lisa felt her face flush as humiliation and anger surged through her. Her first instinct was to walk away, but something inside her rebelled against the idea of letting him get away with it. "That's illegal," she said, her voice trembling but growing louder. "You can't refuse service based on someone's skin color." Phillips shrugged defiantly. "My store, my rules." A nearby customer whispered cautiously, "Maybe you should just leave, kid. He's always like this." Lisa took a deep breath, gathered her composure, and stepped back. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to walk out with dignity. As she reached the street, she stopped, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers to call her father. "Dad," she said, her voice cracking, "you need to hear this. Phillips wouldn't serve me. He didn't even hide that it was because of my skin color." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then George Watson's voice, usually calm and composed, turned serious. "Where are you? I'm coming." Lisa exhaled, her indignation morphing into determination. This wasn't just about her. It was about justice. The next day, despite her doubts, Lisa decided to return to the store. She enlisted the help of her classmate Kelly, a white girl who had always stood by her in difficult times. Understanding that this was about more than just an isolated incident, Kelly agreed to help. Lisa suggested they secretly record their visit on Kelly's phone to capture how Mr. Phillips treated different customers. As they entered Phillips Market, Lisa immediately felt the familiar tension. Mr. Phillips stood behind the counter, his gaze hardening the moment he saw her. Kelly, however, was the first to approach him with a bright smile. "Good afternoon," she greeted. "Could you help me find paintbrushes?" Mr. Phillips' demeanor changed instantly. His face lit up with a forced smile as he responded warmly. "Of course. The brushes are right there. Second aisle on the right. Let me know if you need anything else." Kelly thanked him and moved toward the brushes, while Lisa stepped forward, intending to make her request. But as soon as she opened her mouth, Philip's expression turned cold again. "What are you doing here? I told you we don't serve your kind," he snapped. "Why?" Lisa asked firmly, though she felt a wave of humiliation rising inside her. "Why are you serving her but not me?" Philip squinted at her, his voice growing louder. "Because it's my store, and I decide who gets served." His words rang through the store, drawing the attention of other shoppers. An older man cautiously stepped out from a nearby aisle, shaking his head. He spoke quietly but clearly enough to be heard. "This has gone too far, Phillips. This isn't how we treat people. This isn't who we are as a town." Phillips turned to him sharply, retorting, "Mind your own business. My store, my rules." With trembling hands, Kelly captured the entire exchange on her phone. After Phillips's latest outburst, she slipped her phone back into her pocket and took Lisa's hand. "Let's go," she whispered. "We have what we need." Once outside, Kelly pulled out her phone and showed Lisa the video. The recording left no doubt. Mr. Phillips' behavior was beyond unacceptable. "We need to show this to your dad," Kelly said. "This is proof." Lisa nodded, realizing that this wasn't just a matter of personal offense anymore. It was a matter of principle, of justice. They headed to City Hall to meet with her father. On the way, Kelly uploaded the video to social media. Within hours, it had gone viral, amassing thousands of views and a wave of outrage. By evening, the scandal was known not only among locals, but also by news outlets. Lisa understood. The fight had only just begun. The video recorded by Kelly sent shockwaves through social media. Local residents, journalists, and activists began discussing the incident fervently. The next day, a small crowd gathered outside Phillips Market. Some came to show support for Lisa, while others were merely curious. Reporters with cameras and microphones quickly arrived on the scene. At City Hall, Mayor George Watson called an emergency meeting. The town council, activists, and several residents who had witnessed the discrimination firsthand attended. Lisa sat next to her father, feeling the weight of the gazes directed at her. "This video is a disgrace to our town," the mayor began, slamming his hand on the table. "We cannot allow discrimination in any form, but I want to hear your ideas. What can we do to make this right?" One of the activists, Ms. Jackson, raised her hand. "We need to boycott his business. If he thinks he can choose who to serve, we as a community can choose where not to shop." "That's not enough," Lisa interjected. "He'll just find support from others who think like him. We need real measures, education for business owners, new town initiatives to ensure this doesn't happen again." The mayor nodded, proud of his daughter's resolve. Their discussion, however, was interrupted by a call. The mayor's aide reported that tensions outside the store were escalating. George and Lisa quickly headed to the scene. Outside the store, the atmosphere was volatile. A group of Phillips supporters yelled that he had the right to run his business as he pleases, while protesters demanded an apology and the closure of the store. Police officers stood between the two groups, trying to maintain order. Phillips stepped onto the store's porch, angry and defiant. "This is all her fault," he shouted, pointing at Lisa as she arrived. "She just wants to destroy my business." Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady but not aggressive. "You're destroying your own business. I did nothing but ask for fairness. This isn't just about me, Mr. Phillips. It's about everyone who faces this kind of treatment every day." The crowd fell silent, listening intently. Someone in the crowd began to clap, and soon others joined in. Even some of Phillips' supporters looked uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Lisa's speech was recorded and quickly circulated online, further fueling public support for her. Residents began demanding changes in the store's policies. Under mounting pressure and facing a tarnished reputation, Phillips was forced to temporarily close his store. Lisa understood that this was just the beginning. Returning home with her father, she began drafting plans for the next step, creating a town-wide initiative to combat discrimination in local businesses. In the days following the protest, Phillips Market remained closed, but the town's discussions continued. A public debate ignited, with some residents calling for a boycott and others accusing Lisa and her father of stirring up conflict. Lisa felt the pressure, but refused to back down. Together with her father and a group of activists, she organized a town forum to address discrimination and propose concrete changes. The forum attracted local business owners, residents, and journalists. George Watson opened the meeting, emphasizing the need for new initiatives to promote equality and inclusivity. Then, Lisa took the stage, holding a microphone firmly in her hands. What happened at Mr. Phillips's store wasn't just an insult or a misunderstanding. It's a symptom of a deeper problem. We can't allow this to happen again. This isn't just about me. It's about every person in this town who deserves to know that their rights will be respected. Her speech was met with applause. Many attendees realized that Phillips' behavior wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a systemic issue. Activists proposed creating a town-wide code of conduct for businesses, including mandatory inclusivity training. Meanwhile, Mr. Phillips, watching the crisis unfold, realized his business was on the brink of collapse. His lawyer warned him that without action, he faced potential lawsuits and financial ruin. Reluctantly, Phillips decided to make a move he hoped would salvage his reputation. A few days later, Phillips stood in front of City Hall to make a public statement. His face was tense, his voice tinged with regret. "I want to apologize to Lisa Watson and the entire town. My actions were unacceptable. I admit my mistake and am willing to participate in training programs to change my perspective." Listening to his apology, Lisa felt a bittersweet mix of emotions. She knew his words were motivated more by pressure than genuine remorse, but she chose not to dwell on that. What mattered was the potential for change. Later, with her father and activists, Lisa helped launch the first series of training sessions for local businesses. The program, named Open Doors, aimed to educate store owners and employees on creating welcoming and inclusive environments. As Lisa stood on the steps of City Hall, she watched her town begin to change. Her efforts had inspired others, both young and old, to stand up for their rights. She realized this was only the first step, but she now knew that one voice could spark a transformation for an entire community.